kitchen was a little. I was tidying up a little bit behind me. I was paying attention to what everyone was saying. I just was embarrassed by my kitchen. So the first thing I want to make sure everyone does is make sure you have hot water boiling on your stove.
Everybody got water?
If you haven't started your water boiling, this is the time to do it. We're not going to start with the pasta. We're going to start with the dressing. So you still will have a little bit of time. If your water is not quite boiling yet, don't worry. With Cacio and Pepe, you can salt the water or you can not salt the water. That's totally up to you. Traditionally, I always salt pasta water, but when you're making Cacio and Pepe, there's a lot of salt in the cheese and it gets salted as it cooks. So if you didn't salt the water, if you didn't want to, whatever, don't worry about that. Yeah, so water's all going. We'll start with the Caesar dressing and then we'll set that aside. And then we'll move into the Cacio e Pepe, which is one of my favorite all-time Italian pasta recipes. I love it because it's so easy to make and it's made with stuff that you probably always have around your kitchen. We're making it with spaghetti or bucatini, but you can make it with really any kind of pasta shape. I've made it with all different kinds. But traditionally it's spaghetti or bucatini. Okay, so starting with the Caesar dressing. Caesar dressing is always also one of my absolute favorites. You'll need a bowl and a whisk. The first thing we're going to want to do is to start to break down the anchovy. So I just have these Sicilian like oil packed anchovies here. I already put 3 into my bowl. So into the bowl, you're going to want to put the anchovy fillets. I also cracked a bunch of pepper over the top of that. And the garlic that I grated ahead of time. So if you need to grate the garlic or chop it, this is a good time to get your garlic done. I just was grating it ahead of time and I just put it straight into this bowl already. So just in my bowl here, I have the anchovy fillets. Mine is grated, but if you chop your garlic, that's fine too. Cracked black pepper and Dijon mustard.
And how much garlic did you put in there, Ben?
I put in 2. I had 2 cloves. So I like really garlicky Caesar dressing. If you are wanting it less garlicky, put 1 in. If you're wanting it more garlicky, just keep going. I put in 2 that were pretty big sized. You can kind of see my garlic is here and there. And yeah, so if you have everything in your bowl already, and then for the Dijon mustard, I'm reading off of the recipe I had here, 2 teaspoons. So that's that big glob there. If you don't have Dijon, you can use a whole grain. I wouldn't recommend using a yellow mustard. That's the only one I would not recommend, but any other kind of mustard can work pretty well.
And I am typing all of these specific ingredients into the chat box. So if you feel like you missed a direction or got distracted, you can just look in the chat box for the specifics.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It looks like everybody's just grating their garlic.
Yeah.
People are grating, focused, looking good.
I'm gonna wait for the next part of the process until it looks like everyone's kind of ready, and then we'll kind of move on together from there. So
yeah, Tracy had to go run somewhere to find her mustard. She's back with the mustard.
Yeah, take some time, get your stuff together, make sure your garlic's ready. The garlic is a really important part of the Caesar dressing. So
who taught you how to make Caesar salad dressing, Benjamin?
Who did teach me how to make Caesar salad dressing? Where did I learn how to make it? Oh, that's a good question. Gosh, who taught me how to make Caesar dressing?
Maybe you taught yourself.
I did teach myself, but I think I watched, I think I learned how to make it from like Ina Garten. When I was in college and really getting into cooking a lot, I watched her show every day.
Really?
Yeah, I used to watch her show constantly. I really love her. I love
Maggie did too.
Yeah. I love her recipes. I love her energy. I love dreaming about living in her manor, her estate in the Hamptons. yeah, I really like her. So I watched her all the time and I learned how to make a ton of basic stuff that I know how to make from watching Ina Garden constantly in college. Yeah.
Nice. I love Ina Garden. It was her birthday yesterday.
I know. Yeah, she's great. And it's too like if I don't know how to make something or if I just want to make like an easy like brownie recipe or something, she's the first person I always go to.
Nice. Does
I
everybody
got really into the Caesar dressing that Samin Nosrat makes in salt, fat, acid, heat.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if you've tried it, but it's really good.
I have tried that. Yeah, this one is not really anyone's other than sort of an approximation of how I make Caesar dressing. When I'm cooking at home, I kind of just throw a lot of stuff together. So I broke this apart and I did make it. I made it just like following this recipe last week. So
we know it's good.
I'm following the recipe again. So we're on the right track.
Does everybody have the anchovies, black pepper, and Dijon mustard in their bowl? Tracy, how you doing over there? You lose your anchovies?
So do you cut up the anchovies?
We're gonna kind of mash it all into the bottom of the bowl. So you can.
Oh, and the garlic. Yes.
Yeah.
So the anchovies are whole now, but we're going to use the whisk to smash them up. It looks like everybody is ready for the next step.
Cool. Okay. So the way that I like to do this is I usually just kind of use the bottom of the whisk to kind of just mash. You can see I'll do it here. I just kind of mash on top of the anchovies to mush them up a little bit. And I kind of try to keep them a little bit separate from the other ingredients at first until they're like kind of thoroughly kind of smashed down. I like when Caesar dressing kind of has some chunks of anchovy in it. If you don't like that and you want it to be more pureed, what you can do is take the back of a big spoon or take a fork and really mash it up super, super fine if you're kind of squeezed out by the anchovy. So yeah, I will just kind of jab at it with the whisk a little bit. Also, if you don't mind and you want to make it finer, you can also just smash them between your fingers. Depends on how much you like or don't like touching fishy things.
Quinn is doing a really good job mashing up with the whisk right now.
Yeah, that looks really
nice work, Quinn.
Yeah. So mine is still pretty separate from my mustard and other ingredients. I've kind of mashed the garlic and a bunch of the pepper together with the anchovy. You can kind of see it in the middle part of the bowl here. So it's kind of just all minced up and mashed. And then now I'm going to whisk it, just start whisking it all together.
So yeah, once you get those anchovies nice and broken apart and mashed to the texture that you like, you whisk them into the rest of the ingredients.
Yeah. And I didn't say to add the salt in, but this, go ahead and add the salt in if you haven't added it in. I think it's a teaspoon. Did I put that in there?
Mm-hmm. I will.
Half a teaspoon.
Half a teaspoon of salt.
A little pinch of salt. The anchovies should be a little bit salty, but just add a pinch, and then we're going to add some cheese into this too. So, yeah. All right. So I've mixed it all together, and now it's kind of this like really yummy smelling mustardy, garlicky, fishy paste. So it should be pretty thick. And then to that, we're going to add the egg yolks. So I'm using 2 egg yolks. I like to use 2 egg yolks in this dressing. I like it to be really rich and yolky. If you're wanting to make less dressing, you can just add 1 in. Like if you're cooking for 1 or 2 and you don't want as much dressing, the yolks will really multiply how much dressing you have. Or if you want to use 2 egg yolks, you'll have it left over. Caesar dressing lasts for several days in the fridge. So if you have leftover Caesar dressing, I would just use it by like Monday or something. And it should be fine. All right, so I'm going to add my egg yolks in. So I added in 2. I had them cracked already, but I guess if you need to separate your yolks and whites. Everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, it looks like people are doing some separating
Okay.
right now.
Separating.
Except for Carrie, she's ready. She's got her yolks in already.
They're ready.
Nicole, will you take a picture of Quinn stirring the dressing? Like, I want to share it on the with the cooking school. Yeah, I want a picture of Quinn cooking. It's really cute. All right, I think we're ready. I think everybody's yolked.
Okay, sweet. So yolks, put the two in and then just whisk it until it's nice and smooth. And it should be pretty shiny and thick, pretty smooth looking like this. Your color will vary depending on what kind of eggs you're using. So if your egg yolks were lighter colored, it won't be as, my egg yolks I was using were pretty orange, so my base is pretty orange colored right now.
Does everybody have their egg yolks whisked into their dressing? Awesome.
Can I see the consistency one more time? Yours looked more liquid than mine.
Yeah, I put in 2 egg yolks. My egg yolks were pretty big, and but don't worry if yours is slightly different. That's okay. You just won't add as much oil in. I'm gonna have to add in a little more oil because mine is pretty liquidy, and we're still adding in lemon juice. So if yours is a little more pasty than this, don't worry about it.
All right.
Okay, now I'm going to add in the lemon juice and whisk that in. So I have right here, it's the juice from half of a large lemon, which is about 2 tablespoons. You can measure out 2 tablespoons if you want to be really exact. You don't want to do too much more than 2 tablespoons because again, you're going to have to incorporate a lot more oil in. So I juiced a half of a lemon. I can tell by, I just know this container and I know that that's pretty much right at 2 tablespoons there. And so add that in and whisk that till it's nice and smooth. It should really loosen up your the texture a lot. And it'll be a little bit frothier. And you don't need to whisk too hard at this stage. Just want to make sure it's pretty well incorporated. And so I'll show you mine now. Mine, you can kind of, well, it's hard to see because it's pooling in the bottom, but it's much more liquidy. And if I hit at it, it is kind of frothy. Nice and loose. If yours is still really, really pasty for some reason, you can add in a splash more lemon juice. But I would say err on the side of pasty versus soupy. Mine is about the consistency of, no, it's not quite soupy, but it's pretty thick, but it's runny. It's definitely liquid.
And then it's probably worth mentioning too that this is basically the same way you would make an aioli. This Caesar salad is an emulsified dressing. So once you got this under your belt, don't be afraid to try making aioli. It's almost the same process without the anchovy.
Yeah, if you leave the anchovies out, it's an aioli. Which is also, I taught aioli classes before to people, which are really fun. Aioli is something everyone should know how to make. But yeah, you're learning how to make aioli right now if you didn't already know how to make it. Okay, is everyone good? Ready for the next step? Everything's nice and mixed, smooth. Okay, so you want to add oil in a nice low drizzle. If you're doing this as a team of 2, this it'll probably be a little bit smoother. If you're doing it as 1, just make sure your bowl is stable. I'm doing it by myself. My bowl is kind of wobbly, you can see. You can put your bowl on a towel if you have a wobbly bowl to try to stabilize it if you're doing this by yourself. So you can put a towel kind of underneath it like this and kind of wrap it around the bottom so that your bowl is a little more stable. Because it can be kind of tricky. usually used to do this in a flat bottom glass bowl, but mine broke. So I just have the wobbly bowl. Actually, I usually do this with a immersion blender, and I don't usually do it by hand. But I'm showing you by hand because that's the best way to learn how to do it. So I have learned this technique with my wobbly bowl to kind of hold it with my belly, and then I mix the oil. And so with the oil, you want to just make sure it's added in either a slow drizzle and constantly whisked, or if you're having trouble with that and you have your oil kind of already measured out into a measuring cup, the amount of oil you're going to use is going to vary kind of depending, but it's going to be anywhere from like a quarter to a half cup, I would say. The other way you can do it is to add in like a tablespoon at a time and whisk that in fully, and then add in a little bit more so that you have a little more control over it. I'm going to do the slow drizzle technique, but if you're having trouble doing that, then you can achieve the same exact thing by just adding it a little bit at a time. Okay, so I am just going to start whisking, and then you want to just have a little drizzle so that you're just seeing kind of like a little tiny bead form at a time at the bottom. And you don't need to whisk super, super fast. You just need to whisk enough at a speed to where you're incorporating the oil pretty much as soon as it drizzles in. You don't want it to be pooling up. And if you see that it's pooling up, or if you have like kind of oily streaks throughout your dressing, either speed up your whisking a little bit if you have oily streaks, or slow down your drizzle. You can also take a break and just whisk for a second. So I've probably put in about a quarter of a cup into mine so far. My egg yolks were kind of big and liquidy, so I'm going to add a little bit more. This is what it looks like. It's starting to look like Caesar dressing. It's getting well incorporated. It's getting thicker. Mine might be a different color than yours, like I said, depending on what kind of egg you're using.
Quinn, are you eating all the lemons?
I'm gonna keep adding a little bit more. I want it to be a little bit thicker. Generally, when I make Caesar dressing at home, I'm fine with it being a little bit softer consistency than like one that you might buy in a store, which sometimes can be kind of more like an aioli or mayo texture. I'm fine with it being a little more liquid.
Yeah, so the more oil you add, the thicker it will get.
The thicker we'll get, and you basically you can stop. I'm at a good stopping point now. I'm going to get a spoon so I can kind of show you a little bit better. So this is how I will often do it at home. It's a little more liquidy. It still coats the spoon and will kind of coat the spoon and stay on it. This is nice for tossing into lettuce leaves so you don't have to work as hard. You can go thicker with it. And if you do make this in the future and you're using like an immersion blender or a food processor, it'll get way thicker because of the way the air is incorporated in using those machines. It'll get a lot thicker, a lot faster. This here, I could go a little bit thicker. I'm happy with this consistency. But yeah, if you want to go a little bit thicker, you can. And this is definitely a lot more dressing than I'm going to use in one go tonight. So I'm going to be putting mine aside, and I'll use it for another meal in the next couple days. I'm just going to go ahead and taste mine for like salt.
Yeah, how's everybody's Caesar salad dressing looking and tasting? Oh, we've seen lots of thumbs up. I know Nicole had to run and get her baby mid oil drizzle, so they might be a little behind, but looks like they're catching up. Yeah,
mine, I'm leaving it at like, it's not a full aioli thickness, but if you want it thicker, go for it. Yeah, this is how I'm going to leave mine because I like it that way. It should be pretty garlicky, and it should also have a nice fishiness to it. So the last thing we're going to do, now that we've had your desired consistency, the last step that also will help thicken it a little bit is we're going to add a little bit of the hard cheese that we should have grated ahead of time, or if not, you can grate a little bit right now. I grated mine before the class. This is going to be used in the pasta and in the salad. So I have here about 5 or 6 ounces that I finely grated using my grater around, using a fine grater. So this we're going to add into the Caesar dressing now, a little bit of it, just to give it that final thickness and flavor into the Caesar dressing. And this will help thicken it too, and it will absorb some of the liquid. So I usually do this size, I'm going to start by adding just like a handful, about like this, which is about 1/4 cup of grated cheese. So it's already grated. About 1/4 cup is what I'm going to start with, and see how that looks. For me, it was just kind of like a loose handful. And this is going to change the texture of your dressing. It's going to make it a lot thicker, for sure. So if you weren't quite at the thickness you wanted and you're adding in some cheese, is going to really help with that. And I'll show you the difference now that I've added that in and mixed it in. Don't worry if it looks kind of chunky, that's fine, because there is cheese in it now. So now you can maybe see the texture is just is a little bit thicker. It's hard for me to actually show this. The texture is thicker, and if you're looking at it and feeling it, you can see little sort of pieces of cheese in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it should taste like. That's great. The milkiness and the saltiness from the cheese really finishes it off. I usually toss in more fresh cheese when I'm tossing the salad anyway, but it's nice to go ahead and get some incorporated into the dressing because the flavor really melds into it. So, since my dressing is done, and I know that I'm not going to be using all of it, I'm going to transfer mine out of this bowl, because this is the bowl I'm going to toss the salad in later. I'm going to transfer the dressing into another bowl or jar or something, so that I don't use all of it, because otherwise you'll have Caesar soup and not Caesar salad. I'm just going to put mine aside here, and we'll come back to it later. You can leave a little bit in your big bowl if you want. I'm going to be tossing it in this bowl anyway, so I'm just going to put mine back here out of my way, and we'll come back to that later when it's time for making the salad. And now we're going to start moving towards the next task, which is to make the Cacio e Pepe, the main event.
Now, how'd you learn how to make this one, Ben?
I learned how to make this from when we lived in Italy. I lived for a while at a farm where they raised sheep and made sheep cheese. Do you remember?
Yeah, with the hunky shepherds and their weird family.
Yeah, and they had, yes. Never mind. I was gonna say that. I won't say this on public. Or yes. Anyway, I lived with this family for about a month, and I learned how to make some really simple classic Italian dishes from the mother, Maddalena. And this was one of the ones that I learned how to make from watching her. She made it one day for lunch, and I just thought it was incredible. And so then the next time she made it, I watched her, and yeah, I make it a lot. It's one of my partner's favorite pastas. I make it pretty frequently. And yeah, so I'm gonna make sure I have all my things ready for the next thing. So you'll need cracked pepper, either if it's in your pepper mill, or if you already have it cracked and ready. The other thing we're going to need is pasta. You will need a ladle. You're going to need, the other things I would recommend having on hand, tongs, because I will show you my technique for cooking the pasta. I like to use tongs, it makes it a lot easier. And a wooden spoon just for stirring. Let's see. I am gonna try to orient my camera a little closer to my stove.
Great.
Because otherwise I'll be way out of the picture here.
And how many of you guys have made cacio e pepe before? None of them.
Oh, real? I thought Nate and Maggie, I thought you guys had come to my class I did before, but I guess not. Okay.
I think we were at the biscuit making class.
Oh, okay, yeah. I did a few of them in 2020 around, like spring of 2020, I did some, and cacio e pepe was one of them, so. I'm gonna leave the computer here, and then if I need to show you specific things that are happening, I'm going to lift it and tilt it in the pan instead of trying to bring a hot pan over to the camera. So I'll just be at the stove here. The first thing we want to do is get our pasta cooking. So I have boiling water in here. I gave the recipe for a full pound of pasta. That's like you're cooking for, if either you're cooking for a bunch of people like your family or friends, or if you want to have leftovers. I thought my partner was going to be around tonight and he's not around. And so I'm not going to cook the full pound of pasta, but I'm going to cook half of it. So and the process is the same. I don't want to have all of that pasta as yeah. But the process is the same. So you might see my amount of pasta won't look quite the same as yours if you're doing the full pound. If you want to have leftovers, cacio e pepe heats up really nicely. So it's an easy one to have leftovers of. You can just throw it into a pot with some water. Or a little splash of water and heat it back up.
Is everybody's water boiling and salted?
Is everyone, yeah, boiling. Salting is optional. It's whatever if you choose to, that's great. If not, that's fine too. We good?
All right. They're good. They're good to go.
Okay. So we will go off. I will talk through the way that the recipe was written, but yeah, I'm just using a little bit less of the pasta. So go ahead and get your pasta in the water. I am using a smaller pot, so I'm going to do this weird smoosh them down thing for a second to try to get my pasta down in the water. If you're using a bigger pot of water, that's very smart. I wouldn't recommend breaking the pasta. There's something that some people do. I wouldn't break this. I would leave it whole because you want to have the nice effect of twisting it, kind of twisting it all up in the pan to get it nice and creamy, which you'll see. So mine's in there. I'm using a bucatini number 15. And this is my personal favorite pasta to use for cacio e pepe. You can also use spaghetti. You can also use linguine. The only thing I would not recommend is fresh pasta. It doesn't work. So the last time I taught this class, someone tried to make it with fresh pasta and they were very disappointed. So always use dried pasta. Bucatini number 15, or I would also recommend spaghetti number 12 is a good cut. There are thicker bucatinis. The thicker ones take a lot longer. This one, I will probably boil for about 5 minutes to start with. The same with spaghetti. Spaghetti and bucatini cook around the same time. Bucatini just has a nice hollow tube down the middle of it.
I'm going to set a little timer for 5 minutes just for everybody.
That's the timer.
And bucatini, if you're not familiar, is like a straw. It's spaghetti with a hole through the middle of it. So you can, when you suck it up, you get to suck the sauce through the pasta, which is magical.
Yes. So mine is all in the water. It's boiling. We're going to par cook it in the water, and then it's going to finish cooking in the sauce. Well, the sauce will actually form around the pasta as we continue to cook it outside of the pan. So I have the my pasta is going, and in about 1 minute, I'm going to go ahead and start the next process. So if you are using your next pan, if you want to go ahead and get it kind of warming up, I'm just going to turn mine on kind of a lower temperature to start heating my pan up. That is frying pan like this, or whatever yours looks like. Non-stick is, you have non-stick, that's great actually for cacio e pepe. If you're using a stainless steel pan, sometimes it can get a little sticky towards the end of this process, but I'll give you some tips for how to work with that. So I've just turned my frying pan on to start to warm, and we're gonna add butter to that in just a minute. And then I will move my camera over as needed to kind of show you what I'm doing.
So for 1 pound of pasta, how much butter? How much butter will you want to use for 1 pound of pasta?
That is kind of up to you. I would recommend using anywhere from 6 to 8 tablespoons. You can cut that down. We're going to add a little bit of butter into the pan first, and then we add a little bit of butter continually throughout the process of cooking it. So it gets a little bit at first. We're going to start the sauce, and then we're going to add more butter as it goes. And the butter just kind of gives it a really nice silky, rich texture. So I'll start. In the recipe for a whole pound, it's 6 to 8. You can go more than that if you want, up to you. So yeah, I'm going to put in, now that my pan is warm, I just tested it by sticking my whole hand in it. I don't know why. I'm going to add in about 2 tablespoons to get the sauce started. And you want to just make sure it melts. You don't want it to brown. That's why I was waiting a minute or 2 into the cooking process, because you don't want the butter to brown. So I'm just getting my butter melting, letting it kind of skate around in the pan. And then to that, we're going to add in pepper. Pepper is a really important part of cacio e pepe. It's the pepe part of the dish. So pepper is really important. And the cacio is the cheese, which will come later. So pepper is really important. I like to use kind of I have an adjustable grinder, so I do kind of a rougher grind on mine. If you're using pre-ground black pepper, that's great too. You just will add in. I like to start with about a teaspoon into the butter, and then I'll add more in later. But I like to start with a little bit in the pan, and I'll show you kind of what mine looks like. But it's about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon. If you don't like pepper as much, you can cut that down. But it is an important part of the dish. There's not a lot of ingredients in this, and so the pepper should stand out. It should be kind of zesty. But yeah, if you don't like the flavor of pepper, which I know some people don't, you could cut it down a little bit. I'm gonna show you. Mine looks like it's just in there. So that's all incorporated. So it should smell really fragrant. If your butter starts to foam, that means it's getting close to browning. I would move it off the heat, because then we're about to add the pasta. So it should be 5 minutes now. My timer just went off. So it's 5 minutes from when I added my pasta. So the way that I like to do it with cacio e pepe, because you want to keep the pasta water. We're going to use this pasta water, so you don't want to dump it. We're going to keep it. Take your tongs, and I usually just scoot my pan, the pot that has the pasta in it, right over next to my other pan where I have my butter, and I just start fishing it out. And it'll sizzle and crackle as it goes into that butter. That's totally fine.
And Nicole wants to know, how cooked should the pasta be at this point?
If yours has been in for 5 minutes, that should be good enough, as long as your water was boiling. It's not fully cooked pasta. It's still going to be pretty. I'll show you a noodle of mine. It's still going to be. It's going to be pretty it's gonna be floppy, but if you bit into it, that's not done. It needs, you can see it's still kind of stiff. So I just go ahead and transfer it over. And I'm gonna actually switch my burners to this one so I'm a little closer. And keep that pot of water right next to you. Right next to this pan, because we're gonna use it. So the first step when you get it in, I'll show you my pan. You just want to toss those noodles around and get them nice and coated with the butter and the cracked.
I don't know why, but when you move your computer, maybe you're touching the speaker, but it makes a crazy noise.
Oh, well, that was intentional.
Oh, okay, great.
And so with a ladle, what I'm going to do is start ladling. I just do a ladleful at a time. When you're cooking in a big open pan like this, you lose a lot of the water as it's cooking. So I added, my ladle is a 1 cup ladle, which is pretty standard. If you have a really huge ladle, maybe do a half of one. So I added in a ladle full of water from this hot pasta water here, and just put it right on top of this this pasta. I'm changing my heat now to about a medium to medium high heat. You want the, should I try to move it, or is it going to be?
I think it's okay. Don't move it.
Oh, don't move it.
Just don't move it at this point. Yeah.
Okay. So it should be simmering. The water that's in amongst the noodles should be simmering. If it's not simmering, just turn it up. And this, we're gonna keep cooking. We're gonna keep cooking this pasta down. And basically what happens is as it slowly cooks in this liquid, we're gonna add in more liquid, we're gonna add in more butter. The starch is released from the pasta and it thickens the sauce. It makes it nice and rich and silky. And I like to kind of alternate adding in water and adding in like a little bit more butter. So my water, your water, if your water is simmering at a pretty good pace, it should be evaporating now, and the pasta should be soaking it up. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, why my speaker? Oh no.
We can hear you, Ben.
I know something. For some reason, it connected to my speaker connected to a different source. I got it. We're back.
Okay, great.
So my water is getting close to being fully evaporated out of the bottom of the pan at this point. It's pretty thick. It's pretty silky looking. We're not done yet. We're gonna keep going with it. So what I'm gonna do at this point is I'm gonna add in a little bit more butter. So I would add in about another tablespoon. I'm doing a little less pasta, so I'm adding in a little bit less than that. But if you're doing the whole pound, I would add in a tablespoon now. And just put that butter right on top, and then I like to use tongs to do this because you have a lot more control. So I just use the tongs to kind of toss that pasta around until the butter melts. So my butter is totally melted now that I just added in, and I'm gonna add in a little bit more water. So I'm gonna add another ladle full of water to this. So I added another ladle full of water. My noodles are kind of swimming in the water again. We shouldn't have to add too much more water after this. Maybe about another ladle full. This is kind of where you kind of have to you can, in a second, once my water evaporates back down again, what I will do is test the noodle to see how done it is. So yeah, the butter fully melted, and I just added in another ladle full. I have a nice strong simmer going in this pan. And yeah, that's kind of the process. Keep an eye on it, keep tossing it. You want to make sure that the noodles cook evenly because they shouldn't be fully submerged in water, but there should be water in the pan.
Are they gonna be adding more butter again?
We'll add a little bit more butter at the end. If it looks like your pasta is needing more water, like if your pan gets dry right now and your noodles aren't done, add another ladleful of water. Especially if you're using the whole pound of pasta, given in the recipe, you should probably add another ladleful of water here in just a second.
What can go wrong with this?
What can go wrong with this? What can go wrong is if you cook your pasta for longer than 5 minutes. Like you wouldn't want to fully cook pasta and then put it into the pan and keep cooking it because then it will fall apart.
Return
If
to
you
mush.
partially cook the pasta, it should be fine. Spaghetti is pretty resilient, and bucatini too. That's one way that it can go wrong.
What's our ideal consistency for the sauce when we're done?
The sauce when we're done should be pretty creamy. It should be kind of, the consistency of cream, but that creaminess comes from the starch in the pasta more so than anything.
Maggie and Nate are in the bucatini fan club now.
Bucatini is the best.
Also, Maggie messaged earlier that when she and Nate were dating, Nate bought her a box set of Ina Garden DVDs.
Oh, yes.
That's a really nice move, Nate.
Yeah.
Good job.
Okay, I'm going to I want to show you what mine looks like so you can gauge it. So if it's a weird noise, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Oh no, that was perfect. No noise at all.
Okay, so this is what mine is looking like right now. Let's see, I'm gonna taste it. My noodles are pretty done. So at this point, my noodles are getting pretty much done. They're nice and soft. If yours aren't done yet, that's fine. Just keep cooking. That's totally fine. You can see here, like I'm gonna try to show you some of my sauce. It's not fully thickened yet because we haven't added the cheese, but I don't need too much more water. I have about, if I strained this off right now, I probably have about 3 or 4 tablespoons of liquid in the bottom of this pan. So it's a pretty good amount of sauce right now. At this point, what I recommend doing, if you're using a non-stick pan or this pan that I'm using is stainless steel, and sometimes what happens when you're doing this part of the recipe, when you add in cheese, it immediately sticks to the bottom of the pan. If you're using a pan like this, what I tell you to do is turn it off at this point and then add the cheese in, and that helps prevent the cheese from all sticking to the pan. If you're using a non-stick pan or a well-seasoned cast iron or something, you don't really have to worry about that part, and you can just go ahead and add the cheese right in. So
butter in first or butter will be after?
The butter, we'll add butter in at the end because the butter will make it nice and soaky. So I'm going to turn mine off. Like I said, if yours still needs to cook a little bit, everyone should be about done right now. Is everyone kind of, you taste your pasta? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Maggie is almost there. Carrie, how's your pasta? Yep. Nicole, Carrie, and Tracy are all good to go.
okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add in some cheese. I just did a big handful. It's probably about a half of a cup, 3/4 of a cup. You want to add it straight in there on top, and then you want to start mixing it in. And then if your heat is still on, I would turn it all the way down to low at this point. I turned mine off, like I said, because I know how it goes in this pan, and it'll just be a big sticky mess in the bottom, and I don't want that. So what I did is I added the cheese right on top, and I tossed it around. It should be pretty thick at this point, pretty thick sauce. The cheese starts to melt, also kind of depending on what cheese you use. My cheese melts, and so it should be almost like it should be kind of a goopy texture. Oh man, my headset, why is it doing this? Okay, my headset keeps connecting. Okay, so this is the texture now. It's a little thick for what I want. I added the cheese in. You can see there's not really much sauce in the bottom of my pan here. So now we're gonna finish it. So the way to finish it is I'm gonna add in more butter. So I'm gonna add in about a tablespoon. If you're doing the full pound, I would add in 2 more. I'm gonna put it right on top and do like I did before, toss it a little bit. And then I'm gonna add in a little bit more water to finish it off. Not a full ladle. I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of water, 2 to 3 tablespoons of water, depending on how thick your sauce is right now. And then you wanna just keep tossing and swirling it around in the pan, just so you get the desired thickness of the sauce you want. Your pan is still hot, your pasta is still absorbing liquid. And so sometimes what I'll do is if I'm serving this at a dinner, if I'm serving it just me and my partner, we basically stare over the stove and eat it all hot. If you're serving it to a dinner and it's gonna sit on the table for a couple minutes, I would add in a little bit extra water because it's gonna absorb a lot of liquid in the next few minutes while it's still hot. So mine, I just added about 2 tablespoons to start. I'm gonna add in about 2 more tablespoons just because I know that by the time I'm done making my salad and everything, it's gonna be it's gonna sop up a lot of that sauce.
So you're kind of using your intuition and the look of it to judge the amount of water that goes into it.
Yeah, so if yours has a lot of liquid and you're happy with the texture of the sauce, then that's great. And I would recommend at this point, once you have your desired like consistency of sauce, I would just go ahead and transfer it if you're putting it into a bowl to take it to your table, or if you're putting it onto individual plates, I would go ahead and take it out of the pan. Because what's happening is your pan is still hot and it's gonna cause the liquid to keep evaporating and the pasta to keep soaking up more liquid. So if you're leaving it in the pan for a little bit longer, like if you come back to this in 5 minutes and it's soaked up all the sauce, don't worry, just make sure you leave your hot water here next to your pasta until you're ready to serve it or ready to eat it. Because even if it's sat here for a few minutes and it soaks it all up and it looks dry again, you can just add in a few more tablespoons of water and toss it back in, and it should loosen right back up. So, and then the way that I like to finish is add a little bit more pepper because I love black pepper. And I like there to be like visible pieces of black pepper throughout the cacio e pepe. So I'm going to show y'all one more time. Now that I'm done cooking, I'm going to bring the pan over so it's a little bit. Oh, but I came out of my light. Okay, so you can see my sauce is nice and thick. I've got a lot of pepper in there. All of the noodles should be nice and coated and nice silky thick.
Quinn, how does that spoon taste? Beautiful.
I like to serve it. Sometimes I will just serve this right out of the pan. Just put the pan right on the table is a great way to do it too if you want to eat it hot and right away. Sprinkle more cheese over the top of it is always nice. But that is done. Did everyone's turn out okay? Did you?
Thumbs up, thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, everybody's got thumbs up. It's looking really good.
Great. That's why I love making cacio e pepe.
Yes.
It almost always turns out great. Did you taste it? Did everyone taste it? Does yours taste good?
Yes, Carrie is loving hers.
Okay, it should be the cacio.
Quinn is really loving his.
Great. It's very simple, classic, and just really delicious. And it's funny when I serve it to people who've never had it, they don't realize that it doesn't have cream in it. It doesn't have a lot of heavy, I mean, it has butter, but it's pretty simple. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that there. That's all good to go. I'm gonna leave it here. I'm gonna go back over and just finish off my salad, just so I can have my whole meal together. So I'm gonna scoot this back over. Sorry for the little, I wish I had like a boom stand, but I don't.
Everybody's got mouths full of pasta. They look very happy.
Yay. Okay. So I didn't get to chopping my salad up before the class, so I'm gonna just chop it up now. Also, since I'm solo tonight, I'm not gonna use the whole giant head of romaine. I'm just gonna make for myself because I don't want to waste the salad. But if you're feeding a bunch of people, get it ready. I haven't chopped mine ahead of time. This is a full romaine head. If you're using just the romaine hearts, it's a lot easier. Whatever you got. You can also do this with any other kind of lettuce. Romaine is classic. I like it because of the ribbing in it, and it's also slightly bitter, which I like about it. But you can use it. You can use really any kind of lettuce, or you can use chicories. I have some really good curly endive right now, and that makes a really nice Caesar salad. But you definitely don't want to overdress the Caesar. That's why I like to add in the greens, and then we'll add in the sauce just a little bit. Okay, mine is all chopped and ready. Should have done it earlier, but
That's okay.
so I'm using just a smaller amount. This is just what I'll need for my dinner. And how I like to do it is just add in a little bit because you don't want to overdo it. So I just have like a couple tablespoons on mine. Toss it in. Make sure it's nice and coated. Always start by going under on the dressing. Always, always, always. I just got it all over my hand. Okay, this is how I like mine to look. This is a good amount of dressing for me. You can maybe see it's all coated. Then to finish it off, you just add in some more fresh cheese. I've reserved enough for me to put onto mine. So just add in some more of that reserved hard cheese or whatever your choice was, and toss that in. Also, usually Caesar salad has croutons. I didn't include it in this recipe. I didn't think that we needed to go that deep, but if you have croutons around and you want to add them in, you don't have to add in croutons, but I'm just going to change to my things because I think he's sorry, my computer keeps watching, so that's why your audio that I'm hearing keeps cutting out because my headphones kept connecting. So I figured out that problem. Okay. Does everyone's Caesar salad look good?
Thumbs up, thumbs up.
Thumbs up, thumbs up. Good. So yeah, if you have croutons too, that's great. Caesar salad is great with croutons. It doesn't need it. You're eating a lot of pasta, but croutons are always welcome in Caesar salad. If yours looks a little bit thick, it is nice to add a little bit extra fresh lemon juice on top. So I'm just going to add in a little squeeze of fresh lemon juice over the top. I mean, just a tiny squeeze just to give it a little freshness, and more black pepper because I think Caesar salad really needs black pepper. And that should be it. That's the meal.
Yay! Quick.
Did everyone come together
come together nicely? Did it
Oh
work?
yeah, looks great, Maggie. Looks perfect. Great. Does anybody have any questions before you feast on your hot pasta and crunchy salad? Looks great, Tracy.
Nice job, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yes, I love it. So I think, I think we're all done. And if anybody wants to stay and unmute and comment or questions, you're welcome to. And if you want to sign out and go feast it up, you are welcome to.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, enjoy your meal.
Thank you very much.
Bon appetit.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks, Ben. That was a great class.
Yeah, have a great night.
Yeah,
Thanks for the class.
Thank you for coming. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye, Quinn. Good job. Bye.
Oh.
Oh my God. Good job. That was great.
Yeah, that was fun.